Hello, this is Mrs. Smithy, and today I'm going to tell you about the immune system. Your immune system fights invaders in your body. You have so many cells, and things can get into your body and fight those cells. But with so many cells, how do you tell if a cell is an invader? Cells don't see or hear, they only feel things where they touch them. So if there's a cell, there could be all kinds of terrible things, like just a step away, and the cell would say, "Everything seems fine with me." It doesn't get any indication that anything is there until there's something that they can touch. Cells have lots of receptors, and receptors is highlighted here because it is a new word and it's a word you have to know what it means. So cells have lots of receptors to tell what they're touching, and they react depending on what it is. So receptors are these little things on the outsides of cell, and there are hundreds and hundreds of them, and they are shaped to accept input from certain kinds of things, and that's how the cell tells that those things are there. So if there's some food goes into this receptor, says the cell thinks that's food, pull it in. So pull it inside the cell. Or if it feels a messenger molecule, it says that's a message. Do what it says. The parts of invaders that cells feel are called antigens. And that's how you pronounce it, antigens. And it's highlighted because this is a new kind of word, but it's a vocabulary word. You have to know what it means. Okay, so uh, if this were a bacteria, there would be antigens on the surface. There are different things on the surface that cells could recognize as being from a bacterium. Immune cells, so there are certain cells that are in your immune system, can tell if a cell is an invader by feeling its antigens. So here's an immune system cell, and it's saying, "Aha, you are an invader." And the bacteria says, "Uh oh," because now it's recognized. Before that, it was just passing by, and nobody knew that it was there until the cells realize it by antigens being recognized in antigen receptors. Some immune cells eat the invaders. Okay, so this is an actual micrograph. So this is an electron microscope picture um, of an immune cell, and it reaches out these tentacles, feeling for enemies. And so these bacteria are being grabbed, and they're going to be swallowed by this macrophage, this particular kind of immune cell. Some immune cells poke holes in the invaders, and this I think is the coolest thing because it will. There are molecules that will actually embed themselves in the invader, and then when they get into a circle of five, they form a hole, and the surrounding, water and whatever is there just rush into uh, the bacteria or the invader cell and kill it. Some immune cells look for cells that are infected and kill them so the infection doesn't spread. So these are body cells. So some immune cells specialize in looking for infected body cells. So here there's a poor, sick, infested cell, and it says, "Ugh, I'm infected by invaders. You'd better kill me." And it's sticking out a part of the invaders to signal that. And then this immune cell says, "Your sacrifice brings honor to us all." And then it will tell this make this cell kill itself basically to keep that from spreading. Some immune cells attack anything they don't recognize as being from your body. So there's an immune cell saying, "I've never seen you before, so it's death for you." And the invader is saying, "Curses foiled again." Okay, so it just says like any general type of thing. Like there are some cells that only recognize bacteria. There are some cells that only recognize microscopic worms. But they're just sort of like general categories of invaders. Some immune cells focus on attacking one exact invader and they ignore the others. So here's one of those kinds of cells. And it's saying, I am completely focused on my one enemy. And here it is. It's feeling that. So it's like, that's my one enemy. And so here's a different enemy over here. It's like, so you won't attack me? No, never. Cool. So these ones are focused. Now that can be good because then these cells are for sure not going to damage anything else. Sometimes the generalized cells can make mistakes, but these ones that focus on one exact invader are less likely to make mistakes. Some cells make antibodies. Now, antibodies, see that this is highlighted, and that is a word that you have to know. Antibodies. Antibodies are these little sort of Y-shaped molecules, and antibodies grab onto one kind of invader and nothing else. They're very specific to what they grab onto. So who cares? Why do they do that? Okay, antibodies that grab invaders keep those invaders from touching other cells. So here there are some antibodies that have grabbed onto this invader. You see they've kind of surrounded it. And remember that everything in cells is done by touching something, something physically happening. So if the invader can't touch the cell, it can't break its way into the cell. Okay. Also, it physically can slow them down because just like if you had a bunch of stuff stuck all over you and you were trying to swim with all that stuff, it slows them down. And they also show other immune cells where those invaders are. So here's an invader here, this little red thing, looks like a virus, and the antibodies have grabbed onto it, and then a bigger immune cell that recognizes the antibody can say like, "Oh yeah, that's the guy we're looking for." So they're just holding it, and then the big immune cell can like destroy it or eat it or whatever they're going to do. To make antibodies, so these very specific uh, molecules that can grab invaders or other things, the cells need to know exactly what antigen the invaders have. So remember, antigen are those little parts on the outside that the cells can recognize about the invader. Okay, so this is just like the thing that shows it's an invader. Okay, these are two different models of antibodies, so you can kind of see what they look like. They're Y-shaped. Okay, so here's a much more stylized version. These parts on the outside are really specific, like these parts that grab the different antigens so that they know exactly who they're grabbing onto. And here's a more realistic model. These colors are not realistic, but it's to show you the different parts. Like, so like this part here would be this part here. Okay. Each cell that makes antibodies makes only one kind. There are millions of different antibody making cells all waiting for their turn. So, in a lymph node, there'd be a situation like this, and each of these different colored little puffs, it's showing a different kind of cell that makes a different kind of antibody, and they're all just hanging out, waiting in case there's an invasion. Immune cells that eat invaders hold out antigens. So that's the chunks of the invaders that they ate, and they hold them out on their outside membrane to show other cells who the invaders are. Infected cells do this too. So here's an immune cell saying, "Hey, I ate these invaders. They look like this," and they hold it out on a special part of their cell so they can show other cells, "This is the guy. This is who we're looking for." And then here's one that has been infected by the invader. It says, "Oh, I'm infected by invaders. They look like this." So they take some chunks of stuff that is happening inside them. So, like if it's infected by the virus and the virus is actively manufacturing more virus, the cell takes little chunks of it and holds it out like your friend that was bitten by the zombie during the zombie apocalypse saying, "Here it is. I've been bitten. This is who bit me." Cells holding antigens. So here's this immune cell uh, holding up a piece of antigen, shows them to the cells that make the antibodies. So they go into the lymph nodes and they try on the different antibodies to see which fits, for these different each of these different cells. Okay, so this cell is going into the lymph node here where all these cells are staying. It says, "Hey, who makes antibodies that fit this thing? This is who's invading us now. Who's got the thing for this?" Okay, and there are also little pieces of antigens that are just like flowing around in the blood that could go in there too, and they could activate the correct cell too. The cell with the antibody, so with that magic Cinderella antibody, the one that just perfectly fits, divides a whole bunch of times. So there was one cell like that, but then they say, okay, I've got it. And so then it divides really fast a bunch of times. And each of the cells that divide starts making zillions of antibodies as fast as they can to try and stop the invaders. After the infection, lots of the immune cells die because they're not needed. So there's always some, but they die back and they're recycled back into the body. Some of the antibody making cells stay behind to remember. So they're called memory cells. And so if they're invaded by this one invader again, the memory cell will say, "Hey, I remember you," and quickly divide and then start producing antibodies again. And so you usually don't get a big infection again because your immune system is ready for it the next time. Yeah, okay. So next time that same invader tries to attack, the memory cells make antibodies again fast. So here's some antibody producing cells, like just streaming out, making a whole bunch of antibodies. Vaccines. Now, how vaccines work is they give you a fake infection. Okay, it sort of tricks your immune system, but it's a good trick. Vaccines are made of weakened or dead invaders or just parts. It doesn't need to be the whole thing. It can just be some parts that have the antigen on them, those things on the outside that are recognized by the immune system as being invader. So, a weak or dead form of the germ or parts is introduced. This sparks your immune system to develop antibodies, and then the memory cells remember the germ later. Okay. And so then next time, the antibodies will fight off the germ if it invades again. So really, it hasn't invaded before. You've only gotten, depending on the vaccine, it's either dead invaders or pieces of invaders or just really weak invaders. They can change them so that they're weakened, and so it gives your immune system a chance to sort of practice and get ready. It's like a false alarm, but then it's good because then it gets them activated and then you don't get sick from that thing again. Now, one thing that's different about the coronavirus vaccine that is out right now, and this is February 2021 when I'm saying this. So the vaccines that are currently out right now work like this, which is different than vaccines have ever been done before. It was theoretical before. They wanted to work on this and they'd kind of played with it. But when we really needed this fast, this is what they did because it's faster to develop. So the vaccine is, like it says, it's RNA. So RNA is instructions for making proteins. So we haven't done that before. So when the RNA, the vaccine enters cells, the RNA tells them to produce the coronavirus spike protein. So these little things on the outside of the coronavirus, those little guys on the outside, that's a protein. So there's RNA that will make that protein. It's instructions for making that protein. And so when that goes in, your own body makes the spike protein. Okay, so the spike protein is there. The virus isn't there at all. It's just the antigen of the virus that is made by your cells. So having those spike proteins around prompts the immune system to produce antibodies because it says, invader, we know that's an invader. Okay, so then they make antibodies and they activate the immune system to destroy infected cells. Okay, so it's ready. The whole immune system is now primed for anything that has these little guys on the outside. Okay, so if the patient encounters coronavirus, the antibodies and T cells, those are some especially killy immune cells, are triggered to fight the virus. Okay, so it's the same thing, same kind of process, except you're just injecting RNA. And why they did that is because it's super fast to make RNA because cells are already set up. We already know how to tell cells to make this. So it's not like making something from scratch chemically. So this was way faster, and that's why we did it, is because it was faster and we'd have a vaccine faster. Okay, things that your body does when it's infected to help fight the invaders. You may not have thought about it this way, but here are 4 things that your body does when it's sick, basically, to help fight the invaders. 1, when you have a fever, that is on purpose. Your body is making it hot in your body on purpose because the heat helps immune cells, helps them work, but it hurts bacteria and viruses more. It's more difficult for bacteria and viruses to reproduce in higher heat. 2, produce more mucus. This is the thing that's kind of disgusting when you get sick because you're blowing your nose and you're coughing up mucus, whatever. But that mucus is on purpose. It's on purpose because it's to catch stuff. I mean, your mucus is always to catch stuff, catch invaders so they can't get actually into your body. They get stuck like into some sticky glue trap in your body, and then you can cough or sneeze out the mucus. So it catches them before they get in. So more mucus will catch it because your body is saying like, "Ah, there's all these invaders around. Let's produce more mucus and get rid of them." Coughing and sneezing, that is an attempt to throw out the invaders. It has the side effect that if you cough or sneeze and there's more mucus that has the stuff caught in it, you may be spreading that too. But, your body isn't thinking about other people, it's thinking about you. Getting sleepy. So sometimes, a lot of time when you're sick, you feel really sleepy. That's your body kind of shutting down and saving its energy for fighting the invaders. So you don't have to do stuff. It's just like, okay, shut it down. We need to conserve because we need a lot more energy to fight these invaders. And you may have noticed that if you sleep a long time and you were feeling sick, that you feel better because your immune system was not sleeping when you were sleeping. Um, it was working really hard. Okay, so here's some vocabulary words that we went over that you really need to know. Antigen, that's the parts of things that tell immune cells this is an invader. It's little parts, little molecules on the invaders that are recognized by the immune system. Antibody, and don't get antigen and antibody confused because both got that anti on there. The antibody are those Y-shaped molecules made by the immune system that grab antigens on invader cells. And remember, they're really specific. They only grab one kind of invader. A receptor, those are parts on the outsides of cells that feel for different molecules and they get signaled depending on what they are. So you have receptors for antigens on some of the immune cells. Vaccine, and you probably knew this already, but I'm just saying it just in case. Vaccine, it's antigens from diseases, but without the dangerous parts. So whether that's a weakened disease organism or killed disease organism or just parts of it. So it doesn't have the dangerous parts that will actually infect you. It's just the antigens. It trains your body to recognize the diseases and so be faster at responding to them without having to have the disease first, which is dangerous because the whole point of why you don't want to have the disease is because it's dangerous. Could make you really sick or kill you. So you don't want to have that. Okay, that's it for today, and I will see you next time.